Budget and Finance. It is Wednesday, May 13th, 2026, and it is 10:21 a.m. Members present is Trustee Galutaria, Trustee Akina, Trustee Alapa, Trustee Akaka, Trustee Kahele, Trustee Ahuna is Hulu, and myself to give us the quorum, and I'm officially calling the meeting to order. Okay. Members, as you all know, this meeting can be viewed via live stream on OHA's website and on Olelo Community Media. As a Zoom attendee, you will be able to watch and listen to the proceedings. If you wish to testify on a specific agenda item, please follow these steps. At the time of the agenda item discussion, raise your hand to indicate you would like to testify. In this case, we will change your status from attendee to panelist. This may take some time, so mahalo for your patience. As a panelist, you will be given up to 5 minutes to testify. Please unmute yourself if you wish, and also turn on your camera. When recognized, please speak only to the agenda item being discussed. And once you have finished testifying, please mute yourself. You will then be returned to attendee status. Also, silence your mobile phones. Supporting us today is Crane Akina and Melissa Winahan. And also here to represent admin is our Ponui, Keishan Kikina. I'm now going to call upon Keishan to introduce the other support staff from administration. Keishan.
Mahalo nui, Chair. Aloha mai kākou. In support of this meeting from administration, we have with us today our interim administrator and CEO, Summer Silva, our investment director and interim CFO, Ryan Lee, our budget chief, Grace Chen, our senior director of strategy and implementation, Elena Farden, our grants manager, Kapua Belay, our IT systems engineer and administrator, Kyle Saucier, and our strategic consultant, Lindsay Pakele. Mahalo.
Thank you, Keishan. Members, okay, I'm now going to move to approve the committee minutes of April 29th, 2026. But before I get discussion, has anyone signed up to testify on the committee minutes of April 29th?
No testifiers, Chair.
Okay, members, are there any changes to the minutes of April 29th? If there are not, can I get a roll call vote for their approval?
Trustee Ahuna?
Yes.
Trustee Akaka? Minutes?
9th,
Aye.
2026.
Trustee Akina?
Aye.
Trustee Alapa?
Yes.
Trustee Galataria?
Aye.
Trustee Kahele?
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay is excused. Trustee Souza? Oh, sorry, is excused. And Chair Wahe'e.
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Okay, the minutes are approved. Members, we have some new business. Action item BNF 2610. And I'm going to move to a, oh boy, they always work things like this. I'm going to move to approve, to improve the implementation of the Mālama Honua.
This one has two.
What?
This one has two motions, so it's either in-house or procurement.
Oh, that's a motion? Okay, members, so what I'm going to do, guys, okay, this is the one. I'm going to make a motion, and then if we want to change it, then I'll change it. But I'm just going to put something on the table just to have it there so things don't get hijacked. So so the motion is to develop and administer the Mālama Honua Home Improvement and Renovation Program in the fiscal year 2027 through a competitive grants process to identify third-party collaborators. Has anybody signed up to testify on this action item?
No testifiers, Chair.
Okay, so I'm going to call upon Keishan. Bring whoever.
Mahalo, Chair. I'd like to invite Lindsay to the board table, please.
Chair Waihee, thank you so much. And if okay with you folks, can I call up Chantel Belay, our grants manager as well, in case anyone has any questions about the grant side of it? Thank you. Yeah, is that okay? So, and yeah, thank you so much for bringing us up. And then all of you folks should have the action item, and I believe it should be there. Okay. Excellent. And so, just to sort of summarize, we're returning to, if okay with you, we're returning to the board today after our February 5th program update. As you all know, some questions arose at that meeting about implementation models, use of budget, and also a focus on getting the money to our beneficiaries as soon as possible. And in the month of February and March, you folks also had the opportunity to meet with me, Elena, other members helping with this action item to discuss any questions. And then a short summary of the 2 implementation options is in attachment B at the end of your action item. And so pretty much implementation option 1 is the one that Chair Waihee is asking us to consider today, which is continuing with the current grant solicitation process to use a third-party administrator or administrators. Or, in the alternative, should you folks so choose, is to develop a direct grant to beneficiaries. So those are the 2 implementation options ahead of you folks today. I'm happy to answer any kind of particular questions about those options, but as you all know, in February and March, you had the opportunity to meet with us one-on-one, discuss any questions. We're also provided with an internal memo kind of highlighting those things. And then the reason we're here today for FY27 funding is, as you know, per the action item in the end of March, the FY26 funding, that was applied to the Mālama Honua disaster aid. So that's why we're here.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Members, any questions or any discussion on the action that's on the table right now or potential other ones? Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. I want to know which your group recommends in terms of going forward.
We recommend option number 1. And in the green column, if you see, the reasons are, it's pretty much good to go. Should you folks so choose that option, and then it's confirmed at the BOT meeting at the end of this month, the grant solicitation process can move forward. Given existing staff availability, as well as, I also want to highlight that since OHA has publicized the program being available, I usually wield about 1 to 2 inquiries a week from our beneficiaries, highlighting how much need area there is, but also at the same time how this OHA program is one of very few options available in terms of a grant. And so in that way, we have immediate feedback from our beneficiaries saying they need it, they want it. And then, so in that way, that would be our recommendation due to operationally, we're good to go, as well as we're going to be using existing HRS 10-17 grants processes that, as we know, our grants program is very excellent at, rather than having to build out new systems that might be possible, but would take a lot of administrative changes in many ways, as well as a lot more funding. Yep.
Any other discussion, members? Trustee Galutario.
I'm reading that we don't have the internal bandwidth to do this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? If there's no other questions or comments, then can I get a roll call vote? Oh, Trustee Alapa.
So just reviewing this in regards
Sure.
to Mālama. Oh, sorry. I have a question too. Go ahead, can you have, who?
Trustee Lindsay.
I cannot hear you folks well, actually.
Trustee Lindsay.
Thank you. Chair, I have a question as to why we would, the trustees would delegate our grant award authority to administration. Why do we have, we're getting asked more and more for delegation of our authority, and I don't feel comfortable with that because that means we don't know what's going on.
Lindsay, that would only be for option number 2, which would be a direct grant. So under option number 1, per the usual process, we'll still come back to you folks with the selected potential administrators. But option 2, the reason that we suggested that is because if it were a direct grant program, we would hesitate to publicize publicly all of the personal identification information of our trustees. And so in that way, there would be an internal review process, things like that, checks and balances, but we wouldn't necessarily want to publicize each individual grantee to the public.
Well, we didn't do that for the fire in Maui. Why would we have to do that for this?
I'm going to defer to. I think, well, both of us were not involved in the fire, but my understanding, and if I could call on counsel, there was a delegation of authority to the to the CEO to handle that via the administration. Sorry.
Well, and you know, I feel comfortable about doing that, but right now, for this Mālama Honua, we have absolutely no process that was brought to the trustees.
Edward.
Thank you, Chair Wahe'e. And to Trustee Lindsay's question, Lindsay's correct. In past instances, we have asked for delegation of authority for grant issuances to individuals where we've provided direct grants to individuals or households, particularly those like for disaster relief type programs. And that, as Lindsay summarized, is so that we don't have to come to the board with a list of individuals who are going to be seeking to award program grant money to. That's what's been requested in past instances. So it's not inconsistent with that process. It's, just different amounts and different programs. I'll maybe give it back to Lindsay to discuss this program specifics. I think, though, what is being asked of now is just this more generalized guidance about how the board would like to proceed with this program for FY27. And based on that decision, they would come back with additional details about the program or parameters for those individual grants to go out through the Mālama Honua program. If there's anything further to add.
That is correct. So insofar as if option number 2 were selected, we would take the time from, final board decision until whenever we're finished to come up with a plan, and then come back to the board, yes. And in terms of the delegated individual grant, it is to address the sort of legal concerns, PII concerns that Everett has highlighted. But of course, if that is a concern to our trustees, that can be part of our planning and implementation process.
Okay, any other questions? Trustee Aquino.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Lindsay. Administration has made a recommendation to us, which is that we secure a third-party vendor. So why don't we just amend or modify the action item to say just that?
That's what it is. That's the
Okay,
motion
so
I
it will
made.
be either or.
No. It's just that I just made that. And if we wanted to do the other one, I would have rescinded it and made that one.
Very good.
So, yeah.
Thank you.
Is there any other?
So you took out, Chair Wahe'e, did you take out the designating of authority?
Yes.
Thank you.
It's not in, that's not in the motion I made. Is it the
Okay.
designation of
So
authority?
that is just an option 2, but to my understanding, Chair
Right.
Wahe'e today has just made the motion to go with option 1.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Is there any other discussions? No, you can just use this one. Okay. Can I get a roll call vote?
Trustee Ahuna,
Aye.
Trustee Akaka,
Aye.
Trustee Akina,
Aye.
Trustee Alapa, Trustee Galataria,
Aye.
Trustee Kahele,
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay,
Aye.
Chair Waihe'e.
Yes.
8 yes votes.
The motion passes, and we are moving on to new business. And it's the informational budget briefing. And the first one is a COO Kapunui. Is there anyone signed up to testify on this presentation?
Yes, we have Jermaine Myers in person.
Okay, or Jermaine, you may come to the table.
Aloha, Chair.
Aloha.
Aloha, Chair Waihe'e, Vice Chair Ahuna, and Honorable Trustees. My name is Jermaine Myers, an OHA Native Hawaiian beneficiary. I wish to provide testimony on Agenda Item 3B, the informational budget briefing regarding fiscal year 2026 and fiscal year 2027 budget execution, readjustments, and realignments. I am concerned that this agenda item involves significant fiscal oversight matters, proposed budget readjustments, and strategic priorities for upcoming fiscal periods, yet no presentation materials, briefing documents, spreadsheets, or supporting explanations were included in the posted board packet for public review. The agenda language specifically states that the briefing will 1, provide updates on the execution, status of fiscal year 2026 budget initiatives. 2, review and consider proposed fiscal year 2026 readjustments. And 3, evaluate fiscal year 27 budget realignments. Those are substantial fiscal matters directly tied to OHA's fiduciary obligations to beneficiaries. As beneficiaries and members of the public, we cannot provide meaningful testimony or informed oversight when the actual presentation materials and financial details are withheld from the public packet until the day of the meeting or presented verbally without advance disclosure. Transparent governance requires more than broad agenda descriptions. It requires timely access to the actual documents, proposed reallocations, departmental adjustments, financial impacts, and strategic justifications being discussed by trustees and administration. I respectfully ask the board and administration to improve transparency practices by ensuring future informational budget briefings include budget spreadsheets, proposed readjustment summaries, departmental reallocations, program impacts, and presentation slides within the publicly posted packet prior to the meeting. This is especially important during a time when OHA beneficiaries are closely monitoring concerns involving procurement exemptions, consultant expenditures, litigation costs, executive administrative changes, and the overall stewardship of trust resources. Fiscal transparency builds public trust. Lack of transparency weakens it. In addition, pursuant to Hawaii's Uniform Information Practice Act, Chapter 92F, Hawaii Revised Statutes, I respectfully request a complete copy of all presentations, briefing materials, spreadsheet, memoranda, proposed budget readjustments, and supporting documents presented or distributed regarding Agenda Item 3B, including materials provided by the Chief Operating Officer, the Board Chair, the Board Vice Chair, other trustees, and all appropriate support staff connected to this informational budget briefing. I respectfully request that these records be provided electronically if possible and included in today's board packet. Mahalo to the trustees who continue to advocate for transparency, accountability, and proper fiduciary stewardship on behalf of OHA beneficiaries. Kia kua pu, God bless all of you.
Thank you, Jermaine. So, yeah, I don't, to the extent that we have materials today. I don't know why it wasn't distributed sooner, but the only I'll say this. This is a briefing. The only official numbers that they're going by is the budget that we approved, the biennium budget that's already been approved. They're just like updating us on how things are going, and any of the proposal requests are not coming from the committee. They're coming from the departments themselves to be considered by the committee. And to the extent that we realign anything or take any of it under consideration officially, we would bring that to the board and have detailed information. But I will Keishawn, I'll turn it over to you. Maybe you can explain things more.
No, mahalo, Chair Wahe, you're actually absolutely correct. We are just giving updates on the status of board-approved items, and that is kind of the extent to which, the information will cover. So, mahalo nui. With that, I can step into my presentation if that's okay. Perfect. All right, ki'iakaho. Next slide, please. So I'd like to begin by grounding us in the purpose of the COO PAIA and the role it plays in supporting the organization and execution of OHA priorities. At its core, the COO function is centered on operational leadership, execution to help ensure that OHA's limahana systems and resources are coordinated effectively, and the resources are managed with responsible stewardship to support the timely execution of agency priorities and board-approved initiatives. A key component of the role is supporting the CEO through operational oversight, strategic support, and operational effectiveness so that priorities and initiatives can move forward effectively across the organization. From a broader organizational perspective, this work supports OHA's responsibilities under Chapter 10H by strengthening operational stewardship, accountability, responsiveness, and strategic execution, in turn supporting implementation of Mauli Ola. Ultimately, the goal is to strengthen service excellence to the Lahui by improving how we operate internally, ensuring decisions are informed by data, resources, are stewarded responsibly, and the organization is positioned to execute in service to our beneficiaries. Ki'iakaho, next slide, please. So in this next slide, you're going to be taking a look at the spending priorities, and the COO PAIA does not carry a significant number of direct spending priorities, as many division-specific operational priorities are appropriately captured within subsequent PAIA. So there are really two focus areas centered around strengthening organizational capacity through staffing and through investment in our people and our culture. Regarding staffing, one of the priorities is continuing to fill key vacancies while strengthening OHA's position as an employer of choice. And currently, we're happy to announce that the project supervisor recommendation is currently moving through HR. Regarding the second area is our ongoing quarterly staff development huaka'i. These huaka'i represent a deep investment in our limahana through ike Hawaii, the practice of mo'o meheu, and ha'awina grounded in olelo no'eao, such as huli kalima I lalo. The lessons and experiences provided through the Aina, Vahi, and Kanaka that we connect to are opportunities to strengthen organizational culture, deepen pilina to community and mission, and reinforce our collective responsibility to the Lahui. From an operational perspective, these investments support not only workforce and leadership development, but also the strengthening of OHA organizational foundation through a grounded, mission-aligned, and culturally connected workforce. Ki'iakaho, next slide, please. So this is an overview of where the budget stands. You will see that the respective adjustments were formerly board approved, and that includes the movement of the project supervisor as well as the senior executive assistant under the COO budget. Next slide, please. So at this time, there are no realignment requests. And at this stage, the focus remains on responsible stewardship of currently allocated resources, monitoring operational needs, and ensuring spending priorities remain aligned with organizational and board-approved objectives. I gotta say mahalo to Kehau Pu'u that sat in this seat beforehand. I think the budget reflects, a commitment to growing people, and that's what I'm all about. Next slide, please. As we look ahead into fiscal year 2027, the focus of the COO PIO remains centered on strengthening OHA organizational capacity, operational effectiveness, and the ability to execute strategically in support of board-approved priorities and Mauli Ola. A key area of focus will continue to be strengthening the operational systems, processes, and organizational support structures to ensure priorities and initiatives can move forward effectively, efficiently, and again, with responsible stewardship. We will continue to advance operational excellence through all of these processes, and ultimately, our goal is to ensure that OHA is operationally positioned to effectively deliver on its commitments to the Lahui to build both a better present and future for Native Hawaiians. Hey, Mauni now.
Oh, thank you, Keishan. And we're going to do what we need to make these presentations available to the public. Are there any questions for Keishan? Any comments? Okay, then I'll move on. Trustee.
My concern remains in terms of there being better communication with administration and the board when it comes to certain matters, especially when it comes to island trustees, that proper information be shared correctly and in a timely manner, especially when requested. That is an ongoing concern, and I don't ask that just for myself as the Oahu trustee, but for all island trustees to be kept abreast and that those assurances are truly met. And I think as well, and I had mentioned it in the previous committee meeting with the beneficiary advocacy and empowerment, when it comes to certain matters, I believe there should be a protocol where our administration and BOT is in sync, where we're able to have it where there's a protocol when it comes to certain matters, that there be press releases, documentation, whether it's videography, photography, that be shared so that that data can be on hand for our assets to share with our beneficiaries in real time and in the future, and to take that to the legislature and to the county and so forth. I believe that's all a part of our advocacy.
Trustee Kakamahalo, may I respond?
Keishan, go ahead.
Perfect. So yes, I do believe that a procedure is best to have in place, and I am working on a process map for communications just like that, including the stewardship and distribution of trust resources. Now, on the administration side, timeliness is a key component to delivery of the projects and initiatives that we have set before us, and we would like to continue to focus on, especially when it comes to distribution of resources, the earliest availability for our partners to receive that funding. We realize that many of the initiatives have been emergency funding, and our investment from the Office of Hawaiian Affairs is immensely more impactful because of our partners. So mahalo nui for bringing that to the board, and we will work on that procedure.
Trustee Akaka.
Although I have a follow-up to that. In conversing with the key project, it was brought to my attention that certain assets from OHA was not provided, whether from OHA or from the entity that was administering that. So, for instance, when it comes to communications that they're putting out to the beneficiaries that are receiving their kokua, they did not have our OHA logo digital or printed to be able to apply that to any materials that will be printed by them or digitally sent out by them, whether a newsletter or some other communication. So I think that needs to be included in the protocol in terms of providing them the proper digital or printed assets, as well as what I had recommended with the Wailua Courthouse, that there be pala brochures, certain mail that shares on...
Trustee Kahele.
That shares on...
Chair Waihee, this is not a budget-related question. I would encourage the committee to stick to the item on the agenda. I would also highly recommend trustees refer to the governance documents of the Board of Trustees in reference to the previous question.
Yeah, try to guys, at least try to frame it in the form of a budgetary question, if you can.
Okay, well, I'm speaking to what this printed materials is sharing with us in terms of PIA purpose, OHA's advocacy, the resources across OHA's advocacy, communications, community engagement, operations, and so forth. That's what I'm speaking to.
Okay.
So I think in the future, it would be helpful for us to be able to provide that is in terms of meeting this overview by the COO and the PIA purpose.
Trustee Alapa.
Keyshawn, are there any initiatives that you wish you had specific COO budget to use for the current structure of this budget? Do you believe it's already sufficient enough to carry out your initiatives?
Yeah, mahalo for the question, Trustee Alapa. I do feel that it is sufficient to carry out the initiatives that are set forth in this budget, so which is why there's no realignment request at this time. Mahalo.
Trustee Souza.
Mahalo, Mr. Chair. Keishan, mahalo nui, bro. Thanks for all you do, man. To me, you're a great leader, in challenging times especially, and you navigate that well. I think your communication is stellar. Trustee Kaka, you have something? I have the floor. I think your communication is stellar. I was able to be a part of a lot of opportunities, especially out in the Waialua courthouse, if you're talking about resources and operations. So mahalo nui to you and your team, Summer Silva as well. I'm sure the majority of trustees would agree. One question. What works well when engaging with a BOT, for instance, today? And what could you use more support in from the BOT? We're not here to challenge you, not here to question you in public, put you on the hot seat, right? What works well? Trustee Kaka, I have the floor. What works well in engaging with the BOT, and what are some things that we could work on our end?
Mahalo for the question, Vice Chair. Engaging with the BOT, to me, I think requires following the governance docs that are set in place. And I think those are put in place for a reason. And, you know, if we can follow best practice, it ensures that administration maybe is not subjected to certain dynamics that exist, right? And can focus on performance, implementation, and execution, which is what we're here to do. We are here to execute on board voted and discussed initiatives, things that have been agreed to. So I do think, you know, the governance docs point us in that direction, and they ensure that, you know, we are being guided by things that were voted upon, rather than maybe the individual will of someone. So mahalo.
Mahalo, Keishan. Thank you, brother.
Okay, members, if there are no other comments on the CO budget, we'll move on to the Board of Trustees. And do we have anyone signed up to testify on the BOT presentation, budget presentation?
No testifiers, Chair.
Okay, and I guess I'll turn it over to Keishan to call upon the BOT representative.
Mahalo, Chair Waihe'e. I believe Chair Kahele will be delivering that presentation.
Okay, Trustee Kahele.
Yeah, thanks, Chair Waihe'e, and myself and our interim deputy, interim chief of staff, Alina Young, will be co-presenting on the informational update for the Board of Trustees for this budget briefing. We'll go to the first slide. Next slide, please. I think this is the COO presentation. So while the slide deck is being pulled up, as an overview, Chair, last year, as you mentioned to the previous community testifier, the board adopted its biennium budget on the 30th of June 2025, and it was a budget for FY26, FY27. The total Board of Trustees budget that was passed by the board was just under $5 million. It was $4,957,033. That was what was allocated for the Board of Trustees. Within that budget, the largest total of expenses is for personnel and fringe. And that's for the trustee salaries, as well as our trustee aides and secretaries, and the fringe associated with that. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But within this budget, if you take out the personnel and fringe, there are three, or actually four, distinct buckets that we place money into. One of them is contracts. The other one is equipment. The third one is programs, and then the fourth one is travel. And and Alina will give an update on where we are currently in terms of the burn rate, as far as what we projected we needed money for, and what we have actually spent, which can help us adjust through the realignment process our FY27 budget. So that's generally the overview, about just a little under $5 million for the Board of Trustees for our beneficiaries, of which personnel and fringe take up the largest chunk, about $4.3 million for personnel and fringe. So back to the slide, and this is really just for an informational foundational setting, similar to what Keishan did. The OHA derives its authority from not just the state's constitution, but also from Hawaii Revised Statutes, Chapter 10. Chapter 10 outlines different authorities that the board has, but Chapter 10.5 outlines the board's powers and duties. And I don't need to read it, it's right there on the slide. 10.6 talks about the general duties of the board. One of them is to update and develop a strategic plan. And that's, we currently have our Mauli Ola strategic plan, and through the ad hoc committee and Chair Honua and Vice Chair Lapa, as well as the S&I team, we are working on the 5-6 year reassessment of the MIMO strategic plan, which ultimately should drive where our financial investments are made to accomplish the priorities in the strategic plan. 1014.5 also requires a budget preparation and submission by the board. This gives beneficiaries the opportunity to participate in that preparation of biennial and our supplemental budgets, or what we do anticipate at the end of this fiscal year will be a budget realignment. And so for all of our beneficiaries out there, this is informational purposes only. There will be likely a budget realignment proposed by the administration. It will have all the numbers, all the data, all the spreadsheets. It'll be agendized with enough time for the general public to be able to weigh in, and our beneficiaries, most importantly, to be able to weigh in on what that realignment is proposing. Next slide. Other things important in Chapter 10 is our Hawaiian Registry program, that we need to maintain a registry of all Hawaiians, wherever such persons may reside. We also have other powers of the board, that the board can manage and finance projects and create loan programs, which we do as well. 1022 outlines projects and loan programs that must be self-supporting. So the board has the power to set and adjust rates and fees to charge and cover operational costs, bond obligations, and other financial commitments, with all revenues managed in separate trust fund accounts. Next slide. Through the Board of Trustees, we have, previous slide. We have 3 standing committees. They are the BAE committee, the BNF committee, and the ILM committee. And this is something new that was adopted about 1.5 years ago, when the what was formerly the RM committee was split into 2. And we now have a BF committee overseen by Chair Wahe, as well as ILM committee oversaw by Chair Souza. And our main offices are in Honolulu. And annually, we're required to go to each major neighbor island to have a community meeting and typically a board meeting. Next slide. At the culmination of last year's budget, there were pretty clear initiatives set forth by the Board of Trustees. If we can advance to the next slide, please. One of them was ensuring OHA was an employer of choice. And I do not see the next slide, so correct me if I am lagging in the slide deck.
Mr. Chair, she's gonna stop the slide and start again.
Okay. Well, we can, I'll still brief and it can be caught up. So our biennium spending priorities were to create the Office of Hawaiian Affairs as a state autonomous agency as an employer of choice. And we did that through market competitive salaries, which we adjusted for every employee at the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, and projected potential salary increases effective fiscal year 27. That would be starting after July 1st of this year. We also enhanced compensation and benefits to attract and retain top talent. We did signing bonuses for hard to recruit positions. We incorporated a paid family leave program that authorized 12 weeks of 100% paid family leave for any OHA employee that had to take care of a sick family member and or experienced a birth of a child. We also included professional development opportunities for our PAIA to be able to continue their educational advancement and to give them the necessary networking and skill development in their particular field by attending various different conferences and training opportunities both here in Hawaii and on the mainland. Second thing we did was we operationalized our process and infrastructure improvements. We've kicked off the implementation of priority-wide, PAIA-wide standard operating procedures, and we've invested in new IT systems and efficiency tools such as ChatGPT to be able to budget responsibly and through proper procurement. Third thing is we executed transformational programs and services through our MIMO initiatives that advance education, health, housing, and economic stability. We partnered with the S&I team to relaunch AHA Opio OHA, which will be convening here on Oahu in the third week in June. That would be next month, as well as the Na'elele o Kahikina Congressional DC Fellowship Program, which looks to place its first cohort of fellows in July of this year in Washington, D.C. We also partnered with the Grants Program to launch a novel capital improvement projects program. And though the money allocated was generally, it wasn't a lot of money, $5 million over both fiscal years, we are in the process now of independent team vetting CIP project applications from across the Pai'aina that ultimately will come to the Board of Trustees for recommendation and final approval, and we're awaiting that. Finally, this Board of Trustees took an extremely proactive role in the fall as a result of the federal government shutdown as it affected Native Hawaiian beneficiaries across the state that were affected, federal civil service employees, as well as those that were potentially losing their SNAP benefits. And then we dealt with major disasters such as the current Honolulu that allowed us to move money very quickly and to support our beneficiaries, whether it was through furloughs, funding halts, or natural disasters. This board stepped up and working with our community partners, we're delivering for our beneficiaries. Next slide.
Aloha kako. I guess this is where I will step in. I'm going to take the next few moments to talk about the status of the execution of the BOT's budget so far in FY26. And I also invite our budget chief to sprint to the table if I state anything that's grossly inaccurate, but otherwise she's been very good guidance, and the figures that I will reference are based on weekly reports that we get in terms of budget and actual spend. In terms of execution, I did want to talk about 5 areas of the BOT's budget that can help inform how resources can be reallocated or otherwise utilized to support FY 2027 initiatives. And I do want to stress again what Chair Kahele had mentioned in the beginning, which is these figures are for the program itself outside of salary and fringe. For FY26, the BOT program budget was approximately $649,000 with a spend rate of 46%. And while this burn rate is lower than expected, it is important to note that several BOT initiatives during FY26 were graciously supported by other PIAs and their budgets, so namely communications, community engagement, BSAs, grants, et cetera. Many of these initiatives were not anticipated during the original biennium budget development process, which helps explain the lower utilization of BOT's distinct program budget. Where possible, the board hopes to encumber available FY26 funds for FY27 and secure funding needed for known BOT initiatives going forward. A few key areas help explain the current budget status. First, there have been staffing vacancies and interim roles, including the unfilled board legal counsel position, the trustee secretary vacancy for one of our trustees, and interim support roles for chief of staff, trustee aide for Chair Kahele, and trustee secretary for another trustee. Second, professional development funds were underutilized. Of the $45,000 that was budgeted, $9,000 was spent, or roughly 20%. Trustees and staff continue to have significant individual professional development resources available, although several training topics that are relevant to OHA were provided through org-wide stand-downs, including Robert's Rules, the Employee Handbook, and procurement, which have reduced the need to use BOT's own professional development budget. Next slide. The trustee allowance budget appears to have had a burn rate so far of 3%, so the board would benefit from additional training and advisory from financial services or the budget chief on parameters and opportunities for this category so that these funds are not idle and can be maximized for beneficiary impact or thoughtfully readjusted to support important OHA efforts.
Let me just say, Lena, just for our beneficiaries, every trustee is allocated $7,200 each fiscal year for a trustee allowance. That is significantly lower than it had been in the past. When the trustee allowance, as some of our trustees that have been here for a while know, came under intense public scrutiny. And so today, it's $7,200 per fiscal year. It's very specific what it can and can't be used for. There's a report that is put out periodically to update the community and the public on the burn rate of that trustee allowance. Historically, most trustees, at least in recent memory, and as far as I've been on this board, have not fully utilized their $7,200 trustee allowance. But what Alina is showing you is even today, where we're about a month and a half before the lapse of this fiscal year, trustees have only spent down 3% of the total trustee allowance that they have been allocated for. Back to you, Alina.
Mahalo, Chair. Technology was another area of underinvestment. Of the $14,000 that was budgeted, less than $1,000 has been spent to date, largely due to the timing of implementation for certain softwares that we were seeking. But once we did onboard those tools, they have been highly productive for us, especially in terms of information gathering and work product development. So because we've seen the benefits of using technology in our work, we hope to heavily lean on that during FY27. And finally, travel was one of the more highly utilized budget areas. Of the $312,000 that was budgeted, about $181,000 was spent, reflecting a 58% burn rate. This category largely supports trustees' attendance of regularly scheduled standing committee and BOT meetings, additional meetings that were scheduled, and opportunities for trustee representation at community events and special appearances. So overall, the FY26 actuals to date show both areas of strong utilization and also areas where funds remain. Having gone through this review process of our BOT budget, it has given us an opportunity to better align remaining and future resources with known FY27 priorities, operational needs, and beneficiary impact. And I'm eager to pass this mic back to Chair Kahele.
Sure. Thanks, Alina. Any questions up until that point? Actually, you know what? Let's hold the questions and we'll just get to the presentation and take questions at the end. Okay, the following slides, trustees, are potential emerging needs. These would be when looking at forecasting areas where the board may need to allocate resources towards, and the chair's office is open for any trustee to make recommendations of potential emerging needs. So I welcome those. But these are some that through some of the conversations we've had and some of the initiatives that we see on the horizon may be emerging needs that we might be. So the first of all is we have our investiture that is scheduled for Thursday, December 10th, 2026 at Iolani Palace. The FY27 budget that has already been approved by the board allocated $65,000 to that. I hope that that will be enough to cover the investiture. We're in the process of working with Iolani Palace's Director Paul Akana on putting this investiture together for our newly elected Board of Trustees that will be seated after the November general election. We'll have our investiture, and so potentially an additional request would be an additional $35,000 for a total FY27 requested budget of $100,000 for our investiture, which may or may not need to be utilized to its fullest extent. But we're in the process of planning and having an event at Iolani Palace with the elements and the different things you got to plan for, and having top quality vendors and providing those that do attend a welcoming experience and our community guests, that may need to be plussed up. The second thing is the 2026 election, and though it is the midterms in Congress, this is not a presidential year, but this is a gubernatorial year here in Hawaii, and we have several important races, not just for our own trustees, but also throughout the state. It's a desire for the Office of Foreign Affairs, given the sensitivity of the issues that affect Native Hawaiians and the broader state, to have a much more prominent role in this election cycle. So one of the proposals that will be coming to the board is a first congressional district statewide televised debate that will happen in July, just before absentee ballots are mailed out to Hawaii voters. Currently, right now, you have Congressman Ed Case that is running for re-election in the first congressional district. You have State Senator Jared Kehokolole, who is running for that seat as well, along with House of Representative Della Bellotti. And so there's an opportunity there for OHA to host a CD1 debate statewide, framed on Native Hawaiian issues, for those that desire to serve in the United States Congress or are currently serving in the United States Congress, to talk about issues along military leased lands, water rights, public land trust revenues, Mauna Kea, the 30-meter telescope, issues really important to the Native Hawaiian community, and to be able to get ask some tough questions and to get these candidates and current sitting members of Congress on the record as it relates to these questions. The next would be the OHA Board of Trustees elections. As you all know, we have 5 of our 9 trustees are up for election this year, all 3 at-large seats, the island of Oahu seat, as well as the island of Maui seat. And so the opportunity in the general election to have up to 3 OHA Board of Trustees forums that will feature the top candidates for those races, to be able to answer questions and give incumbents the opportunity to express why they should be reelected to the OHA Board of Trustees, and or other candidates that desire to serve on the OHA board. This will also be on prime time as well, and I think it will elevate the OHA ballot, and hopefully ultimately that will enhance voter turnout. Of course, if our incumbent trustees or any trustee, any candidate wins, 51% of their election in the primary, then obviously that race is over, and we would not have that forum featured in the fall. But that is a potential opportunity for OHA to elevate itself, especially on the heels of potentially SB 903 being signed into law by the governor, and the significance of the federal funding cuts. I think this is a great opportunity for OHA to elevate itself and to take a prominent role statewide in the upcoming 2026 election. And I hope it'll be something that we do perpetually every election cycle. Next slide. Okay, military lease lands advocacy. Currently, we have a $500,000 budget dedicated to the military lease lands permitted interaction group. This is not an issue that is going to be resolved this year. We know the leases, many of which expire in August of 2029. That's about a little over 3 years away. So given the nature of the board after this election, and if there is the desire to continue the military lease lands permitted interaction group, to reconstitute it, to continue its work, then it's going to need resources. And the suggested budget amount and the additional budget request would allow us to continue our Washington, D.C. based advocacy and to continue that work so that OHA can be at the forefront of this military lease lands advocacy issue. And so that is potentially in the budget. Finally, the next item would be an additional request for our communications budget as an opportunity to leverage other PIAs for unanticipated communication moments that we've had to do, whether we got to respond quickly or strategically to emerging opportunities. Having a little bit of money into a board comms budget, I think, is important for beneficiary focused messaging. Next slide. Okay, as discussed in executive session previously, and to be coming up at a future board meeting will be the potential acquisition of assets and real property controlled by our production and our broadcast company serving the Hawaii market. And so there's a potential request of $150,000 to complete the due diligence required for this potential acquisition opportunity. This may be coming in front of the board in the near future. The next item is legal fees. We've had significant legal challenges to the Office of Foreign Affairs and the Board of Trustees over this last year, and have seen a higher burn down rate than normal of our legal fee budget. The board passed $150,000 in legal fees, so we have that. I'm suggesting an additional request of $150,000 for a total of $300,000 to support the board's legal defense of any unanticipated legal matters, and also in absence of a dedicated in-house board legal counsel, which we have frankly struggled to find a solid, competent person to do that. And so that is why that position is still unfilled. Next slide. Okay, so the total additional budget request for the Board of Trustees in FY27 is $714,000, 75 cents, or $714.75, excuse me. That is a slight increase from what FY26 budget was, which I think was about, from what Alina briefed earlier, about just under $650,000. We've talked about areas that are underspent, though we continue to provide those resources so that our PIAs and working together with our staff and our trustees can get opportunities to develop themselves professionally, whether it's managing our trustee allowances or managing travel or adjusting the professional development budget that we have. Next slide. The board, last fiscal year, initiated a novel biennium budget development process, and I'm pleased that Chair Wahe continues that and is doing these budget briefings. I think they're very informative, not just for our beneficiaries, but also for our trustees and as well as our PIAs as we approach the end of this fiscal year and look to a budget realignment based on emerging needs and opportunities as they arise. We can only predict historically where we need money and what we need to spend those things on based on our strategic plan, but things come up all the time that are unplanned, whether they're federal government shutdowns or natural disasters. And so the board has to pivot and be flexible in how we address those needs within our communities. We talked about the programs that we had initiated in this year's budget, and many of them are kicking off right now as well, including the recently just passed recommendation for the Mālama Honua home repair program. Next page. Next slide. Yeah, FY26 was a dynamic year and presented significant opportunities for OHA. And we have an opportunity to build on that momentum in the FY27 biennium budget by pursuing timely, high-impact opportunities that strengthens OHA's visibility, our civic engagement, our federal advocacy, our communications capacity, while also ensuring the board can respond quickly to emerging priorities for Ala Hui. Next slide. Okay, that is the end of our presentation. Happy to take any questions. Should there be any?
Are there any questions, members?
Defer back to Chair Wahe.
Thank you, Chair. Any questions, members? Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. Just reading through these budget emerging needs, that reminds me of the DC Kamehameha lei draping. I'm seeing that it's happening on June 7th, which is followed by Hawaii on the Hill from June 7th through 10th. This is something that Office of Hawaiian Affairs Board of Trustees has attended through the years. It's been a tradition, and I would like that to be added to the radar as well.
Sure. Go ahead and submit your travel request, because we have a lot of travel money before the end of this fiscal year. So I think if trustees would like to attend Hawaii on the Hill, get those travel requests in, and we'll make it happen.
Any other questions, members? All right. Alina, did you have something?
No, I just wanted to ask real quick, do any of those initiatives sound good for the board for FY27? Do you guys have any specific questions? I think they were all presented or referenced at some point at the table, so I want to make sure none of this is a surprise and has your support or at least feedback.
We would.
I'd also ask and say, you know, the chair's office has an open door policy on fiscal requests, and so if each individual trustee who knows their communities best, know where the needs are, you know, work with your staff and field those requests, either obviously through Chair Wahe and the BNF chair or the chair's office in terms of the formulation of our board budget. I'm open to any suggestions that other trustees have, and we'll do our best to get those into the budget and work with Grace and the budget team in incorporating them.
Trustee Akaka.
Mahalo. Regarding the filming of First Congressional District and OHA Board of Trustees for the upcoming election, just the wording, I see that the wording of debate is used. I would encourage the word of forum so that it's less divisive and it's more encouraging to have the candidates feel welcome and open to be able to express their what they would like to do, their vision, their mana'o, and how they would like to serve in office. Mahalo.
Thanks, Trustee Akaka. And just for our trustees, this will be coming in front of the Board of Trustees. I got to work together with Chair Wahe on this, but my plan is to bring it to the Board of Trustees on May 28th, when the board convenes on Thursday, May 28th, to discuss this, because these the primary election is right around the corner. The filing period ends early June, and the races will be set. And we got to get moving on this very quickly to accomplish a third week July 2026 CD1 debate. We got a little bit more time on the fall forums as they relate to the OHA races. Like I mentioned, the at-large races. There's 3 of them, 3 seats that are up this year, as well as the Oahu seat and the Maui seat. We got a little bit more time on that, but the CD1 forum debate is right around the corner. So we got to move pretty quickly.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. Then, with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Okay, any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none, can I get a roll call vote?
Trustee Ahuna?
Yes.
Trustee Akaka?
Aye.
Trustee Akina?
Aye.
Trustee Alapa? Trustee Galataria?
Aye.
Trustee Kahele?
Aye.
Trustee Lindsay?
Aye.
Trustee Souza?
Aye.
Chair Wahe'e?
Yes.
9 yes votes.
Meeting's adjourned.
Members, give us about 15 minutes to get set up for the ILM meeting. Mahalo.
So what time would that be?